mic check at the microphone, and then we'll get started. Hey everyone, good afternoon. I'm Claire. I'm the Director of Communications. Thank you for being here. This is sort of your one-ish minute warning before DA Boston comes in. I just want to kind of give you a couple ground rules. These are two newly indicted cases that we're talking about today. So they are open and pending. That means there are going to be some limitations on the types of questions we can answer. So ask away, but we may not be able to answer everything today. Okay? Anything I can help you with before we get started? All right, I'm going to get DA Boston.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. I am DeKalb County District Attorney Sherry Boston, and today I'm here to announce two indictments related to criminal activities inside the DeKalb County Jail. These indictments represent two different cases, and I want to give you a brief overview of each case. In April of this year, employees found a contraband cell phone and cigarettes during a search of an inmate's cell. As part of the investigation into that contraband, we interviewed Deputy Joanne Marks, who worked in the jail. Deputy Marks admitted to giving the cell phone and the cigarettes to the inmate. Deputy Marks also admitted to having sexual intercourse with the inmate. The sheriff's office arrested and fired Deputy Marks the same day. Once the Sheriff's Office of Professional Standards completed its investigation, they turned over their file to our office for review. Tuesday, a DeKalb County grand jury indicted Marks on several felony charges: sexual contact by an employee or agent in the first degree, and 2 counts of violation of oath by a public officer, and items prohibited for possession by inmates. Following her indictment, a grand jury warrant was issued for Deputy Marks' arrest. She turned herself in to the DeKalb County Jail this morning, and she's scheduled for arraignment in the Superior Court on December the 23rd. The second case we want to update you on today involves the tragic death of Christian Collins. On March 13th, 2024, Collins was an inmate at the DeKalb County Jail. Surveillance video from inside the jail that afternoon shows Collins visibly stumbling around the common area of his assigned pod. At one point, Collins slumps against a wall and then falls. He appears to hit his head on his way to the floor. Inmates move Collins to his cell and eventually to a mattress on the floor of the day room. It wasn't until hours later, around 7:40 p.m. that evening, that jail personnel discovered Collins and called in paramedics to transport him to the hospital. Collins died 2 days later. He was just 27 years old. The DeKalb County Medical's Office performed an autopsy and determined that Collins had died of a fentanyl overdose. Through our investigation, my office learned that another inmate, 45-year-old Tobias Woods, sold the drugs to Collins and another inmate in his pod. Witnesses say Woods not only provided the fatal substance to Mr. Collins, but he also actively worked to prevent Collins from getting the help he needed when he knew something was wrong so that he wouldn't get caught. After Collins fell, Woods was the one captured on surveillance video moving Collins into his cell and out of the view of jail staff. Tuesday, a DeKalb County grand jury indicted Tobias Woods on charges of felony murder, 2 counts of distributing controlled substances, and items prohibited for possession by inmates. A warrant was issued for Woods' arrest, and the DeKalb County Sheriff's Fugitive Unit took Woods into custody on Wednesday afternoon. This case will be assigned to a Superior Court judge and scheduled for arraignment. Neither of these indictments would have happened without the hard work and dedication of the staff standing behind me. I want to take a moment to recognize Chief Assistant Pete Johnson, Supervising Investigator Christopher Hollywood, Director of Major Crimes Lance Cross, Deputy Chief Assistant District Attorney Steve Ruth, and Senior Investigator Steve DeMasi. I would also like to thank the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office and their Office of Professional Standards. Most importantly, I want to express my deepest condolences to Kristen Collins' family. I and my team have been in touch with his loved ones to notify them about this development in the case, and we will continue to keep them updated as it progresses through the court system. Our investigation into the drug death of Kristen Collins and how those deadly drugs got into the jail is still open and active. Collins was a military veteran who had been struggling with mental health issues. He was booked into the jail in February of 2024 and died little more than a month later. I want to remind the community that many of the people housed in the DeKalb County Jail are awaiting their day in court and have not been convicted of a crime. Being in jail should not be a death sentence, and crimes that happen inside the jail will not be ignored just because the people impacted are behind bars. This office and this team will investigate, and we will hold people accountable. I'll now open the floor up to questions. Taisha.
Yes, I have a question about the Tobias Woods case. In your investigation, did any of the jail officers fail to do something that played a role in his death? Because I know in the video Tobias dragged him into the cell, but is it part of your investigation, I guess, to find out if any of the jailers were responsible as well?
Our investigation is open and active, and we will continue as we learn additional facts, continue to look into any and all circumstances surrounding the death of Christian Collins.
Madam DA, if you could tell me, how long was Woods in the jail? Because it sounds like when he was arrested, he was out. So how long was he in the jail? And then how extensive do you think the drug selling was? Because no doubt it would be more than the 2 people mentioned.
Well, Mr. Woods was arrested on his initial charges in December of 2023 on burglary and other charges. So at the time of Mr. Collins' death, he'd been at the jail for approximately 2 months.
So when he was arrested, he was still an inmate?
No, are you talking about his most recent arrest when we picked him up this week No, he had been released on bond.
When?
I do not have that information, but we can get that to you.
And this, forgive me if you already said it, but what was his charge? What was he in there for?
Tobias was burglary and related charges to that burglary, yeah.
Can you talk about how rare the charge is of felony murder from the fentanyl sale? The only other one I can think of in DeKalb County is one that Mr. Cross handled in Dunwoody back in 2019.
It is pretty rare. And obviously you're familiar with the case that we had here in DeKalb County on this issue, but obviously the legislature last session stepped in to create Austin's law to allow this to be a charge that could be brought in an easier way. Of course, this case happened before that law went into effect, which is why we're charging it in this way. But now there is a vehicle that was created specifically for these types of drug-related cases.
You can say, I know this is just indicted, but there's some video surveillance that has come out from the death, unfortunately. Is the actual sale of the drugs caught on camera as well?
I do not believe that sale is on camera.
And then with Ms. Marks, if you could, she was arrested in April. What happened between the case being handed to your office at that time and now to lead to the indictment and her rearrest?
Sure, normal course. We get cases every day from the police department where people have been arrested and they bond out. It has to go to the grand jury like every other major felony that comes into our office.
Or more so, was there anything additional you uncovered?
I can't speak to that. Again, it's an open case. What I can tell you is that after an arrest in any case, our office investigators, our DA investigators, will do their own investigation, gather more evidence, because the standard for arrest is probable cause. What we have is beyond a reasonable doubt, so we need to build a file to make sure we're prepared to do that. And we do that in every case, but in cases involving correctional officers or police officers, this unit does a lot more information so that we can be prepared for what we need to do in front of the grand jury. Yes. He was, at the time, in jail. He was arrested in February of 2024 for obstruction of law enforcement officers and simple battery against police officers or a detention officer. Those were the charges he was facing, and no, those charges had not yet come to court.
How does that sit with you that he had not faced those charges? He had not had his day in court and his life was taken from him?
It's absolutely tragic, and it's why we wanted everyone to know that we hold people accountable. As I said, being in jail should never be a death sentence. And Mr. Collins stood charged, arrested, but he had not been proven guilty of any count. And even had he been guilty or pled guilty and was serving jail time in the prison or awaiting transfer, his death also would have been incredibly tragic and avoidable and, of course, prosecutable.
DOJ's investigation into the state prison system and now the Fulton County Jail. Here we see impropriety inside this jail. I mean, what can you say about the culture right now about jailing in Metro Atlanta, and what actions are you trying to take to ensure that it follows at least the rule of law?
What I can say is that I have full faith and trust in our Department of Justice, who has done an amazing job of holding prisons and or jails accountable for what should be happening in those jails, either criminally or through their civil rights division. And I continue to have faith that moving forward, they will do what's necessary to ensure that people that are being held in custody are being done so in a safe and constitutional manner, and one that is held to the standard of what's required of those jailers.
Along those lines, since you're still looking into how those drugs got into the jail, undoubtedly you're looking in probably the security measures
Absolutely. The Sheriff's Office and the Office of Professional Standards has been provided everything that we have asked for in the course of our investigation, and I see no reason that that cooperation would not continue.
Was anybody else injured by the fentanyl? Just because the stories that I've done, it's so lethal, even in very small amounts. Was anyone else affected by him having it?
We continue to, again, this is an active investigation, but we continue to look at the circumstances surrounding any other person that might have ingested drugs that were obviously laced with fentanyl.
What happened to the second inmate? You mentioned the second person had purchased.
Yes. The second inmate also suffered a medical emergency, but because he was able to be revived, he received Narcan. And was able to be revived quickly. He was able to survive the fentanyl overdose that they received on that case. So the difference being is that we all know with fentanyl, the best chance that someone has after having this lethal dose is to have Narcan administered. And we have seen the difference of what happens in our community, not just our jails, but in our community. It's why our law enforcement officers carry Narcan in their vehicles, is because we know that immediate attention saves lives.
That said, since there's the claims of the delayed medical response from Collins, what's the time difference between the medical response that the two received?
I don't have that information right now about the time difference.
So you don't believe these cases are related, to be clear, right? The two indictments are separate?
They are separate, yes.
The inmate that Marks was allegedly involved with, is that inmate going to face any charges in connection with this investigation?
Well, that inmate was possessing items. You can't have a cell phone and you can't have cigarettes, right? That is illegal contraband within inside the jail. But that would be the only thing that this inmate would be facing. The sexual conduct in this case is purely for law enforcement detention officers who are prohibited from using their positions to engage in any type of sexual activity with inmates because the law does not view that as consensual.
Did that occur right there in the cell? Where did the sexual encounter occur?
Well, it occurred in the property of the jail.
So not in the cell, like was she taken into a secret place?
I can't get into the facts of it, but it occurred inside, obviously, the jail.
How would you characterize the level of illegal contraband in the DeKalb jail? We've certainly seen it as an issue, an ongoing issue. The Sheriff's Office has said at Fulton County Jail that they continue to struggle with cell phones and all types of things being brought in. Is that also a prominent issue for the DeKalb?
It's a problem everywhere. It's not just DeKalb. It's not just Fulton. I can tell you that I've spent a great deal of time the last couple of years going up to D.C. and lobbying with our federal legislators to address the issue in particular of cell phones in our prisons and jails. So this is a problem that every institution is facing, that cell phones become a way to conduct criminal enterprises, do criminal activity. It's a danger to victims and witnesses on the outside. And obviously, it's a way for people to continue selling drugs inside a place where there is a captive audience. So, yes, it is a problem in DeKalb, but it is absolutely a nationwide epidemic. And there is not a prosecutor in this country, federal or state, that will tell you it is not an issue in their local prison or jail.
How concerned are you then about getting to the root as best you can of the source of all this contraband that might be coming into the jail?
It's why I've got the team behind me working on it. As I stated, this is active and open. This is not an investigation that has ended with just the charges against Tobias Woods. This is a case that we will continue to uncover and collect information as much as we can to understand how these things got into the jail. Because what we do know is that anything that's coming into a jail is being brought by people that have the ability to enter and exit, no matter what it is, whether it's cigarettes, cell phones, or drugs. And so we want everyone to know that we will continue to investigate and hold anyone accountable that breaks these rules and commits these crimes by bringing anything and everything that is not allowed into a jail or prison.
And when you're lobbying lawmakers, phone signal blocking or?
I'm so glad you asked that, Veronica. What I can tell you, we have been lobbying consistently and continuously for there to be blocking of signals around state prisons in particular. But also this issue would fall to local jails, although state prisons is the bigger issue because we know those are persons that are serving sentences, they've been convicted, and they're in locations for an extended period of time. But what we know is that we have a problem with cell phones finding their way into prisons, but they become very expensive, little black boxes of nothing if there is not an actual signal for them to connect to and connect to that outside world. So I have had conversations with our senators and our congresspersons about this very issue. Both Republicans and Democrats in our DA association are uniformly agreed that this is a problem, and we have continued to lobby and ask for the federal government around FCC rules to find a way to implement this type of safeguard for the protection of our community.
How were you able to determine that Tobias was selling drugs?
Through our investigation.
What avenues of that investigation? I know you can't go into the specifics of it, but did you see it? Did you hear accounts? Did you see transactions? Are there records of it?
Well, as within any investigation, we talk to as many witnesses as possible. And we get good information, we get tips, we follow up those tips, we follow up with those leads, and generally, we listen to jail calls, we do all the things within the law that we're able to do. And, a lot of times people give us the information because they want to be helpful, and that allows us to then lead us to our next lead.
Did that happen here?
Yes.
Most frequently when we hear of fentanyl and overdoses, it's drugs laced with fentanyl, and the person ingesting might not know it has fentanyl. Do we believe that's the case here, that he unknowingly ingested the Mr. Collins?
Yes. We have every reason to believe that it was drugs laced with fentanyl.
We're going to leave it there. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.